The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 minutes and 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 45 seconds.
Waiting for the early train. Sorry, boy, but I've been hit by a purple
The Scott Jennings
rain.
Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds.
You can always change your name. Thanks a lot, son, just the same.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
Sean, are we at 16:45 here?
No, 15:45. 15:45.
Not just a conservative voice at CNN. He's the last man standing, authority the leftist long, delivering the fiery truth. Surrounded, outnumbered, still undefeated. Fighting for free speech, Western civilization, and delivering common sense for the American people. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Scott Jennings.
Common sense for the American people. It's the Scott Jennings Show. The world travels of Scott Jennings continue. I want to thank Mr. Scheffler, Steve Scheffler in Des Moines, Iowa. Saturday night had me out at the Faith and Freedom Coalition Fall Banquet in Des Moines. 1,000 people crammed into a ballroom. I saw Kristi Noem. I saw Bernie Moreno, the new senator from Ohio. And what a crowd. So thanks to the folks in Iowa for having, I'm loving Iowa. I think the people of Iowa are liking common sense for the American people. So enjoying my trips out there lately. And I broadcast to you today live from the Big Island. I'm looking out over my right shoulder out my window. I see the Pacific Ocean. We're in Hawaii today and tomorrow. So we're coming to you live from halfway around the world. The travels of Scott Jennings never end. I have to tell you, though, the events of the last couple of weeks do give us all the feeling that something has changed. We'll talk about that in a few moments when we discuss the memorial service for Charlie Kirk. A little breaking news to start the show today. Friend of the show, friend of mine, Bruce Pearl is retiring from Auburn basketball. That's just breaking as we go on the air. Bruce is a warrior for conservative values. He's been a warrior for the people of Israel, standing up against anti-Semitism. I don't know what this means. There's an open Senate seat in Alabama. We'll see what it means. I hope it either means public service or that we get to hear him on a nightly ESPN broadcast. Goodness knows they could use him. 33 minutes past the hour today. Excited to introduce to you a new element of the Scott Jennings Show. We're calling it Investing in America. It's an interview series. We're going to interview CEOs and organizational leaders who are investing in the American economy. These are people who believe in American exceptionalism. And today's first episode, which again comes up at 33 minutes past the hour, is with the CEO of a company called Global Laser Enrichment. Our guest today, Stephen Long. He's the CEO. But first, let's do the news. And we start in Arizona, where the memorial service for Charlie Kirk drew over 200,000 people. The indoor service was held at State Farm Stadium, capacity 73,000. It filled up quickly when the doors opened. What was said? Well, a lot of things were said, but I think the most remarkable thing was Erica Kirk, the widow of Charlie Kirk, in eulogizing her husband, proclaimed her Christian faith, and she gave the entire world a lesson on forgiveness.
Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. That man, that young man, I forgive him.
On top of that, Erica Kirk reminded the world of how conservatives and Christians have responded to the assassination.
Most of all, God's mercy and God's love have been revealed to me these past 10 days. After Charlie's assassination, we didn't see violence. We didn't see rioting. didn't see revolution. Instead, we saw what my husband always prayed he would see in this country. We saw revival.
President Trump spoke and, of course, put his signature style on the eulogy. While Erica Kirk preached forgiveness, the president took a somewhat humorous but alternative view.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent. Charlie's angry. Look at that. He's angry at me now. He wasn't interested in demonizing anyone. He was interested in persuading everyone to the ideas and principles he believed were good, right, and true.
Only President Trump, folks. Only President Trump. Our friend Andrew Colvett over at Turning Point USA says his team tracked over 100 million overall streams for the memorial service, and that's just what they know about. There's some things they cannot track. It's a remarkable send-off in Arizona for Charlie Kirk on Sunday. This is the Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network. Now, you have probably heard the Relief Factor commercials where someone says to his spouse regarding his pain, "You don't understand, it's gone." Well, Sharon told us that's exactly how she feels. She says, and I quote, "Relief Factor has helped me so much, I plan on taking it for the rest of my life. I am a walking testimonial, and as you know, we're taking it in the Jennings household. I've got this swelling, a little bit of inflammation in my right knee, and I got to tell you, we're into the Relief Factor. We're all doing it. We all like it. We all think it is effective. If pain has been holding you back, maybe it's time you found out why so many people like Sharon and like myself make Relief Factor part of the daily routine. Try the 3-week quick start and see how it works for you. Visit relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF. It's Scott Jennings on the Salem Radio Network. More news and, sadly, more left-wing terror attacks over the weekend. The first was a gunman shooting up the local ABC TV affiliate in Sacramento, California, where thankfully no one was injured. The shooter is 64-year-old Anibal Hernandez Santana, an ex-legislative director for the California Federation of Teachers. That's the teachers union out there. He was an impassioned supporter of gun control, according to his social media posts. He's been charged with 2 felonies and, shockingly, has already been released from jail. Now, this is California. They brag out there about how seriously they take gun violence. And yet, a left-wing nut shoots up a TV station and somehow is out of jail a day later. The second terror attack was a shooting at the Sky Meadow Country Club in Nashua, New Hampshire. The shooter was a former employee of the country club, and witnesses say was screaming "Free Palestine" during the shooting. He was indiscriminately firing into a crowd. 1 is dead, 2 are injured after that shooting in New Hampshire on Saturday night. Speaking of Palestine, Britain, Canada, and Australia confirmed on Sunday they now formally recognize Palestinian statehood. France had already done it back in July. These announcements come as the United Nations General Assembly meets this week in New York. What are the borders of this state? Who is in charge of it? Where does Hamas fit in? You see, the questions are stickier when you have to live next to it, like Israel does, rather than issuing press releases from thousands of miles away. Why these Western nations are rewarding Hamas for their barbaric acts on October the 7th, well, whatever their reason, I suspect the Western world will rue the day that we're giving into this radical terrorism. 4 o'clock today, the White House making an announcement on autism and what they say are links between Tylenol and acetaminophen use during pregnancy. We'll hear what RFK and President Trump have to say a little bit later this afternoon. It's the Scott Jennings Show, common sense for the American people on the Salem Radio Network. When we come back, I want to play some audio of Jasmine Crockett for you. Vile, heinous statements, but I've got some information from the congressional record that you are not going to want to miss. At 33 minutes past the hour, stick around for our Investing in America series. It kicks off today. I'm Scott Jennings. This is the Salem Radio Network. Stay with us for more Common Sense for the American People.
The voice of reason, common sense for the American people. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 4 minutes.
All I want is a remedy for all of the things that will be. Ooh, I will take another. Please.
Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes.
Tell me, did the other jumpers going on you? If I come on like a dream, ooh, will you let me show you what I mean? Will you let me come?
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
All I want is a remedy for all of the things that we I could only take a to please
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 1 minute and 30.
Need a remedy, yeah. For what is enemy? For what is enemy? I need a remedy, yeah. For what's enemy?
Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return in 1 minute. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 45 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 seconds.
Leftist arguments with truth and common sense. They hate that. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
There must be some kind of way.
Talk about these Democrats, by the way. Absolute despicable behavior, vile language, hatefulness, lying in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder and around the memorial service. I'm going to start this segment by playing you. It's a little bit of a long clip. It happened on CNN yesterday. Here is Dana Bash interviewing the unquestioned leader of the Democratic Party, Jasmine Crockett.
A resolution that came before the House this past week honoring Charlie Kirk. And there were 58 Democrats who voted against it. You were one.
Yeah.
Why?
Absolutely. You know what? One of the things I do want to point out that's not been laid out that honestly hurt is when I saw the no votes, there were only 2 Caucasians. For the most part, the only people that voted no were people of color, because the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk continuously put out there was rhetoric that specifically targeted people of color. And so it is unfortunate that even our colleagues could not see how harmful his rhetoric was specifically to us. And I can tell you that a month prior to him passing away, he had actually gotten out on his podcast. I wasn't aware of this at the time, but he got out there and he was talking negatively about me directly. So if there was any way that I was going to honor somebody who decided that they were just going to negatively talk about me and proclaim that I was somehow involved in the great white replacement, not honoring that kind of stuff, especially as a civil rights attorney, and understanding how I got to Congress, knowing that there were people that died, people that were willing to die, that worked to make sure that voices like mine could exist in this place. So to me, just like we wanted to make sure that those Confederate relics were taken down, the idea of a new age relic being propped up was something that I just could not subscribe to. And it is unfortunate that more of my colleagues, even on my side of the aisle, could not see the amount of harm that this man was attempting to inflict upon our communities.
Jasmine Crockett. First of all, let me just say a couple of things. Number one, she is a liar. She's lying about our friend Charlie. He was not a racist. He was not targeting anyone. He merely was espousing his own values and allowing people who disagreed with him to debate with him. I found many things repulsive about that entire diatribe. But when she said, well, he criticized me. It's not about you, Jasmine Crockett. It's not about you. You know what it's about? It's about violence in America, left-wing violence and political violence in America. Now, a lot of Democrats like to throw up, well, why are you so mad about Charlie Kirk? Were you not also mad about what happened in Minnesota when the speaker there, Hortman, was murdered? I was looking up some information on the Congressional Research Service today. There was actually a resolution passed in the House after Speaker Hortman was tragically murdered. Did you know not a single Republican voted against it? Not one. Now, in the case of Charlie Kirk, 58 Democrats voted against Charlie's resolution. 38 more voted present. 22 didn't vote at all. After the Hortman resolution, Republicans came together to honor Speaker Hortman and to do this. and I'm reading from the resolution, call on all community leaders and elected officials to publicly and unequivocally denounce acts of political violence. So that happened. Republicans unified around a call for nonviolence. After Charlie's murder, however, Democrats not only abandoned ship on that, they then went out and slandered the man who had been murdered by a clear left-wing radical lunatic. Interestingly, if you dig in to the resolution that was passed after Speaker Hortman was tragically murdered, you will find out that a few people did not vote yes. Some people missed the vote. Do you know who missed the vote? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez could not be bothered to show up to vote to honor Speaker Hortman and to call on our nation to turn against political violence. And of course, in the case of Charlie Kirk, she railed on the House floor, spoke passionately against the Kirk resolution. The United States House has voted twice now in the last few weeks to condemn political violence across the spectrum and across the country. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has not voted yes in either case. Now ask yourself why that might be. Why would it be that the leading left-wing socialist radical in the House can't bring herself to vote yes on resolutions condemning violence? Invest in America is next. It's common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings on the Salem Radio Network.
The fastest growing show on syndicated radio. Welcome aboard. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 5 minutes.
I've been run down. I've been lied to. And I don't know why I let that mean woman make me a fool. Took all my money.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Now she's with one of my good time buddies. They're drinking in the town bar. Sometimes I feel like I've been tied to the women.
The Scott Jennings Salem Radio will return in 4 minutes.
I feel like I'm dying.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
My friends tell me that I've been such a fool.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes.
Drown myself in sorrow as I look at what you've done, but nothing seems to change. The bad times stay the same, and I can't run. Sometimes I feel
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Lord, I feel like I'm dying.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 1 minute and 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return in 1 minute. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 45 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 15 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network.
On the Salem Radio Network, we believe in America. Scott Jennings does too. Here's Scott with Investing in America.
Welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show, common sense for the American people on the Salem Radio Network. I am excited today to launch for you all the first installment of a new interview series called Investing in America. I'm going to interview leading CEOs from companies and organizations that are investing in America, investing money, creating jobs, unleashing new technologies, all within the frame of investing in and betting on America's future. I'm excited today to introduce you to Stephen Long, who is the CEO of a company called Global Laser Enrichment. You'll hear us call it GLE. It is a nuclear technology company based in Wilmington, North Carolina. Now, earlier this year, President Trump signed a series of executive orders designed to reinvigorate America's nuclear energy industry.
A very big announcement today, and has to do with nuclear energy and other things. And this is all nuclear. It's a hot industry. It's a brilliant industry. You have to do it right. It's become very safe and environmental, yes, 100%.
And why does President Trump's leadership matter here? Because, well, America simply stopped investing in nuclear while adversaries like China and Russia kept going. Not good for our future. But I think with a Republican Congress and President Trump, we are entering what could be a nuclear renaissance. And given the amount of energy we need to defeat China in the race to control AI, not a moment too soon. Let's get into it today and hear about one American company, Global Laser Enrichment, and what they are doing to follow President Trump's lead in investing in America. Stephen Long of GLE, welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
Thank you, Scott. It's great to be here. Thanks for having us on the show.
And we appreciate you joining us today. Now, I want to start with you. You have an impressive background. Let's start with that. How did you get into the nuclear business?
Great question. I'm actually an aerospace engineer by schooling. Spent a couple of years at MIT working on submarine launched ballistic missile guidance, but also went to the Naval Academy undergrad. So ended up serving 8 years in the U.S. Submarine Force. Obviously, our submarines are nuclear powered, and so the nuclear Navy provides some of the best training and qualification of nuclear operators in the U.S. So when I left the submarine force, I joined General Electric and their nuclear business, which is headquartered in Wilmington, North Carolina, and spent about 15 years there at General Electric before coming to Global Laser Enrichment.
So tell us about GLE. What is the footprint of the company? You're in North Carolina. Where else? Kind of give us an idea of the geography of your outfit.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm standing today at our headquarters in Wilmington, North Carolina. We've got a 70,000 square foot engineering and advanced manufacturing facility here. Right across the river from me in Wilmington, North Carolina, we maintain what we call our test loop, which is a pilot scale test facility where we process and enrich uranium. It's actually on GE Nuclear's campus. So that's our footprint here in North Carolina. And then in Kentucky, we actually own close to 700 acres of greenfield site just to the southeast of the legacy gaseous diffusion facility there in Paducah, Kentucky. And we're planning to deploy a very large production scale facility there in the years to come.
So you are also sister companies with a well-known company called Westinghouse. You're obviously on the cutting edge of nuclear technology. And some of this is, of course, near and dear to my heart because you brought up Paducah. I'm from Western Kentucky as well. Maybe dig in a little bit. Tell us about Western Kentucky. Tell us about the Paducah gaseous diffusion plant and tell us what is GLE aiming to do there?
Yeah, so I don't know if your viewers know, but Paducah is actually the site of, again, a former gaseous diffusion facility that was first run by the Department of Energy. And then eventually privatized under a company called USEC, United States Enrichment Corporation, and is now closed and is being decommissioned. But Paducah and that whole region, because of that, have a very strong history in uranium enrichment for the U.S. It was one of the first large-scale uranium enrichment facilities post-Cold War, at the start of the Cold War. And there's just the community, the state and local support is fantastic. There's a skilled and available workforce there. Many of those workers come from families that worked in the gaseous diffusion facility for decades. And like I said, we've got a large plot of acreage with plenty of room to grow, and we're very excited about bringing the technology to that community. Also there in the community, we have access to about 200,000 metric tons of what we call tails. So this is depleted uranium that was accumulated and stockpiled there at the facility over the decades that it operated. And because we have a technology that's very efficient, we can take those tails, re-enrich them, produce natural uranium, which is the feedstock into the enrichment process for the whole industry. So that's another key reason that we're siting our facility there in Kentucky.
So I want to talk about the technology. You have technology that, as I understand it, and trust me, I'm a media guy. I'm no nuclear physicist like you, but you have technology that is really different than everything else that's available out there, at least from other companies in the United States. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm not a physicist either, and I didn't sleep it all in, so I won't take that credit either. But yeah, we have a very exciting technology. It's called the SILEX process. It stands for separation of isotopes by laser excitation. It is a third generation form of enrichment technology. The first generation was gaseous diffusion, which is the plant that Kentucky was originally designed to do. The current technology throughout industry is gas centrifuge, and we're the third generation. It's a very exciting and disruptive technology, originally conceived in Australia. And early on in the 2000s, the US identified the technology, says this has the potential to be very disruptive. We want that technology to be advanced and commercialized here in the US. So our whole work is actually underpinned by a very unique treaty called the SILEX Treaty between the US and Australia. That treaty brought the technology over here in the early 2000s. GLE was formed in 2007 to start commercializing the technology. We, like the entire industry, took a significant pause post-Fukushima and have now come out of that. And we've got over 100 employees here in the U.S. that are advancing this technology in the U.S., bringing innovation, taking the technology from really a theoretical and lab scale process to commercializable scale. And that involves everything from learning how to manufacture our components at scale, how to lean out the process to make it efficient, et cetera. So the technology offers lots of advantages. It's more efficient. We can produce a lot more material for each of our devices than a gas centrifuge. And of course, we're a different technology than gas centrifuge. So we offer U.S. utilities diversity of supply and diversity of technology.
So this is the Investing in America series, and you're our inaugural guest. Tell us exactly, how is GLE Investing in America? Give us an idea, employees, your capital investments. What kind of a scale are we talking about as it relates to your company's impact, not just on sort of the nuclear specifically, but the energy industry at large?
That's right. So today we're just over 100 employees, most of them here in North Carolina. We've got a few who work throughout the country. Actually, over 40% veterans. I'm really proud of that. And to date, we've invested over $550 million in this technology, primarily in North Carolina and in Kentucky as we develop that site there. At the site in Kentucky, we're planning to deploy a multi-billion-dollar facility. And I told you we own 700 acres of land. We plan to develop close to 190 acres. And our production facilities at full scale will occupy close to 1 million square feet. So it's a very large facility. We plan to create over 1,000 jobs during construction and have 300 to 400 long-term, high-paying operations jobs once the plant is up and running.
And as I understand it, the GLE project in Paducah would ultimately inject about $4.5 billion into the greater Paducah, Kentucky area. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's right. The Paducah Development Chamber provided that estimate to us, and that's based on our investment, obviously the primary supply chain as well as the indirect supply chain to sustain a facility like ours. We have a lot of advanced tech. We'll need a lot of local supply chain, everything from piping and valves, manufacturing to consumables, et cetera.
And your supply chain is all over the country: North Carolina, Ohio, Florida, Tennessee, California, Missouri, New Jersey. So even though this is a project in one state, Kentucky, you're talking about a national impact ultimately for economic investment.
Yeah, that's right. The enrichment industry today is really dominated by state-owned entities that are not U.S., right? And so a lot of the supply chain for enrichment tech in general exists overseas. And so for us, it's not only, it's been an imperative from day one to try and onshore as much of that as possible, not just because it's a better business case for us, but because it's really important in the geopolitical climate today, as we're all aware. So especially for a new technology like ours, we're actually working to revitalize a lot of the areas of U.S. technology where, frankly, the U.S. fell behind, whether it was in the nuclear supply chain or in adjacent supply chains like laser technology and electronics. So we've worked from everyone from large corporations to small mom and pop shops to set up primary and secondary suppliers and to really reinvigorate the U.S. supply chain for nuclear in general, but also for our technology in particular.
Well, you're bringing up sort of the climate in Washington, D.C. President Trump, of course, has made it a focus to unleash American energy to bolster our national security. Can you just talk a little bit about the impact on a business like yours of having the proper public affairs or public policy climate in Washington, D.C.? What does it mean to have allies who really believe in the idea of unleashing a domestic energy solution like what GLE could provide?
Yeah, that's a great question, Scott. Obviously, it's a huge moment for nuclear right now with, first of all, the efforts to decarbonize electricity generation. And then, of course, even more importantly, the geopolitical climate, recognizing that most of the nuclear supply chain today is dominated by countries that aren't friendly to us, namely Russia and China. And so it's really important for the U.S. to restore that advantage. And the key there is to let private industry, folks like us, bring innovation and technology to the table and to be able to do it quickly. So the Trump administration's executive orders on streamlining the regulations and the regulatory review processes has been significantly impactful. We have a license application in with the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Normally that license application review process was around 30 months. And with ours, we're planning to have a license here in 18 months or less. So that's an immediate benefit from the Trump administration's executive orders. On top of that, the goal to quadruple nuclear generation in the U.S. by 2050 is huge. Our technology, our product from our facility can fuel the current fleet of light water reactors, and then it can fuel the next generation of reactors that are in the pipeline. So the administration's initiatives and incentives to spur nuclear in that regard are a significant lift for us as well as the entire industry.
That voice you're hearing is Stephen Long. He is the CEO of an American company called Global Laser Enrichment. And this is the first installment of a new interview series on the Scott Jennings Show called Investing in America. We're going to bring on CEOs of companies and organizations that believe in America and that are investing in America's future. When we come back, I'm going to ask Stephen Long point blank, are the American people ready for nuclear power to be a bigger part of our energy matrix? It's common sense for the American people right here on the Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network.
Straight talk without the bluster. When you positively need the truth, this is where you come. Scott Jennings Show.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network returns from break in 3 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 2 minutes. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 1 minute and 30 seconds.
At the left.
The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return in 1 minute. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 45 seconds. The Scott Jennings Show on the Salem Radio Network will return from break in 30 seconds.
the Salem Radio Network. We believe in America. Scott Jennings does too. Here's Scott with Investing in America.
Hey, it's Monday, September the 22nd. Scott Jennings here on the Salem Radio Network, and we're in the middle of an interview with Stephen Long, who is the CEO of a company called Global Laser Enrichment. He's the inaugural guest on my new series called Investing in America. Hope you enjoy the conversation. Let me ask you a question. You've been in this business now for a while. You talk to people about it all the time. Do you think the American public is ready for more nuclear? I mean, you brought up Fukushima earlier. You know, you go all the way back to 3 Mile Island, and you know, over time, you've seen undulations in public opinion about nuclear. Is the American public ready for this, and is GLE ready to take advantage of that environment?
I believe they are, Scott. I think, you know, prior to Fukushima, there was a small uptick in interest for nuclear that was really driven around forecasted electricity demand with economy growth, et cetera. But this time it's different, right? It's not just electricity demand and the need to decarbonize, but it's also been driven by, again, the geopolitical factors, as well as now the push for artificial intelligence and all the electricity that those data centers need. And it's really become a national imperative to bring that back to the U.S. and let the U.S. be a leader. So obviously, I think as we're learning, a lot of the sentiment against nuclear was driven by misconceptions and false information about its safety, about the effects. I think the public is all learning about those misconceptions and is embracing it across the board. And again, the Trump administration's initiatives and getting behind nuclear has been really helpful in that regard. And there's been strong bipartisan support for it as well.
Well, the president, I interviewed him the other day, and of course, he was talking about the AI future. You brought that up, and these data centers that are going online. I asked him, you know, you've done a lot on energy already. Is there more to do? He said, yes, there is going to be more to do. I think they know that we just have to produce more energy. In your opinion, is nuclear the main way forward here? The president and his administration, you know, they're phasing out this renewable craze. They're going back to what we know works. Just from your perspective, is nuclear going to be the thing that gets us from where we are to where we have to be to defeat China in the AI race?
Yeah. Well, I may be biased, Scott, but I absolutely believe that nuclear is the only way. It's the foundation we must build to achieve our goals in all those aspects that you just mentioned. From my time in General Electric's nuclear business to today, you know, first and foremost, nuclear energy is a strong geopolitical tool, and we must be leaders in nuclear technology and nuclear deployment to control the geopolitical situation. But more importantly, nuclear is the only way to provide the amounts of clean baseload power that we need to fuel AI and economic growth across the board. The economics for wind and solar have always been suspect. And I think they will have their place in niche applications and a decentralized grid, but you really need a large baseload capacity generation that's clean, and nuclear is the only one that can fill that.
All right, let's wrap up the interview, Stephen. And let me just ask you point blank. So what is next for GLE? When can you get your project started? What has to happen to unleash this unique technology into the American energy space?
You know, a couple of things. That's a great question. So first and foremost, we're in the race for close to $1 billion that the Department of Energy has made available for folks like us to accelerate and de-risk our projects. You know, bringing a new technology, a first-of-a-kind project like this to the market, going up against state-owned entities is no small challenge. And so that'll be a significant source of ignition for us if we can secure that. But in parallel to that, we're operating our test loop. That pilot plant I told you about earlier, just completed our initial demonstration program here and are looking to close that out by the end of the year. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we've got that license application in with the NRC. We have to have that license application before we can start construction on the nuclear portions of our facility. So planning to complete our demonstration by the end of the year here, have the license application within the following year, and be well into construction in the latter half of this decade.
Stephen Long, you're the CEO of GLE. You're in a cutting-edge space of nuclear energy, and you are the inaugural CEO on the Scott Jennings Show Investing in America series. Thanks for all you're doing to invest in America, and thanks for being a great guest on the Scott Jennings Show.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Appreciate your time, and it's an honor to be the first guest.
Stephen Long there. Common sense in the energy business. That's what we do here on the Scott Jennings Show. We're talking common sense, and I think Stephen Long at Global Laser Enrichment is doing it the right way. Thank you so much for listening to the show today. That was the first installment in our Investing in America series. Going to bring you some interesting conversations with business leaders who are investing in America. Join us again tomorrow for more common sense and breaking news. It's Scott Jennings live here on the Salem Radio Network.